Welcome to video 12.7. Today we're going to talk about more bivariate correlations. So exercise 1 says, generally the fuel efficiency of a car changes with the weight of the car. A survey of some cars and their weights and gas mileage is shown below. We want to find the equation of the line of best fit, and that's the key word there. We're looking for a line of best fit. That means that I'm looking for the equation of a line that best fits that data. And then it tells me to round both coefficients to the nearest tenth and list what the variables x and y represent in the context of the problem. So first, I'm going to find the line of best fit. So then, since it's a line, that tells me that I'm looking for a linear regression. So in order to find the linear regression, I'm going to plug my x values into L1 and my y values into L2. We do that by going to Stat, Edit, Up, Clear, Down to clear out anything that is in your list, and then enter in your data. Then you're going to go back to Stat, Calc, and we have done this before. You're going to go down to choice number 4, which is a linear regression in the form ax plus b. Then you're going to make sure that you tell the calculator that your x values are in L1 and your y values are in L2, and then you can calculate the linear regression. Now for work, you're going to write down what's in your calculator. So I wrote down linreg, y equals ax plus b, and then the a terms exactly as they're seen on the calculator screen. But it told me to round them to the nearest tenth. So now when I put it into the actual equation, I'm going to make sure to round to the nearest tenth. But if I make an error rounding, at least I have the work here to show that I did find it correctly using my calculator. So now I'm going to rewrite the equation as y equals, but instead of putting a, I'm going to put in the negative 8 point. Since I need to round to the nearest tenth, tenths place is a 0, next door is a 9, so that tells me that I need to round it to negative 8.1, and then the b term, or I'm sorry, with an x, and then the b term, which would be 68, and again rounding to the nearest tenth, 0.09 rounds to 0.1. So my equation is y equals negative 8.1x plus 68.1. And now I just need to say what the x and y represent. And I find that by looking at my table. X represents the weight in thousands of pounds, and Y represents the mileage in miles per gallon. The next part says to state the correlation coefficient to the nearest thousandths. So now that's already on our calculator screen. I just didn't write it in the previous one because it didn't ask anything about the correlation coefficient. So remember, correlation coefficient is your R value, and we want to round to the nearest thousandth. So first I'm just going to write what I see in my calculator, which is that long decimal, but then I'm going to round it to the nearest thousandth as it says, so it's going to be negative 0.9 tenths. 1 is the hundredth, so thousandths will be the 4. Next door is a 1 telling me that to leave it at 4, so negative 0.914. Then it says, what does that mean in the context of the problem? Well, this shows a strong negative relationship. So I wrote that as the correlation coefficient shows a strong negative correlation or relationship, meaning as the weight increases, the mileage decreases, or as the mileage decreases, the weight increases. So in other words, they're doing the opposite. Okay, let's look at C. It says, using the equation for the best fit line, predict the fuel efficiency of a car that weighed 5,100 pounds, rounding to the nearest integer with appropriate units labeled. So in order to do this, I'm going to use the linear regression equation that I have in part A, but I'm going to sub in the new value of 5,100 pounds. I'm going to start off by looking at my x value, which in the table it said that the x values were thousands of pounds, so I can't put in the 5,100. That'd mean 5,100 thousands of pounds. So we have to change that to actually 5.1. Then I can go ahead and plug it in place of the x in my equation. And then I find that y equals this negative 8.1 times 5.1 plus 68.1. And when I put that in my calculator, I end up getting the answer of 26.79. But it said that I needed to round my answer in the directions to the nearest integer with appropriate units labeled. So this means that my answer is the nearest integer. Look to the decimal. The 7 tells us to round up, so 27. And what was the y value? Mileage in miles per gallon. So I can say 27 miles per gallon. That's my answer with the appropriate units. We will continue to looking at this in class, but just remember that you're going to be looking for equations using your calculator and then interpreting just like we've done in the past. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.